Hey everyone. So if you follow my channel for a while, you know I like creating videos for you guys that helps you to understand the creative process, the drawing process. Understanding the why of drawing and not just the how. And with that said, several years ago when I was really getting into studying and learning how to draw, I would often find in one place where it told you to do one thing, and then I'd find somewhere else where it told you to do something the complete opposite. And that used to have me really confused. So I thought, you know what? Most likely, a lot of you guys out there ran into contradictory drawing advice that may have left you confused. And in this series of videos, I'm going to address some of those common, seemingly contradictory drawing advice that you may have gotten. And hopefully, you can see how I resolve them. And, hopefully it will help you too. And as usual, guys, just a big thank you for supporting my books, Pen and Drawing Workbook and Pen and Drawing a Simple Guide. They're both can be found on Amazon and on the online retailers. And I will be doing a video soon where I'll be going over one of the exercises in this book. And I may actually make that something more commonplace where I do different exercises in here. And I kind of explain some of the concepts behind some of the exercises that I do and why they're important for your practice in pen and drawing. So in the first video in this series on contradictory drawing advice, I'm going to take a look at two very common advices that you may have heard before, or at some point I'm sure you will come across in your drawing. The first one states that you should draw what you see. And the second advice is that you should draw what you know. So the first advice is that you should draw what you see in front of you. The idea is it's emphasizing the importance of careful observation in drawing. To take the time to look closely at what you're drawing, to really spend time understanding and really getting to know what you're drawing. As a matter of fact, there are many instructors who advise you to spend more time looking at the subject than actually drawing. In many cases, we don't draw what is actually there in front of us. We draw what we think we see. And then afterwards, you realize like, wow, I didn't really look more closely. So slow and careful observation is important. And that's the idea behind drawing what you see. Now, the second advice, to draw what you know, is really emphasizing the importance of relying on what you know. And drawing what you know is there, even if you don't see it. Draw what you know is best for the outcome of your drawing. Drawing what you know serves the best interest of the idea that you have or the creative vision. How do you really draw what you see yet draw what you know? It's either one or the other, right? On the surface, these two advices seem to contradict each other. So for instance, let's look at proportions, for example, and see how that applies. Now, we all know proportion is one of the most critical aspects of a drawing. If a drawing is well rendered, has, perfect shading and so on, but has poor proportions, the whole thing falls apart. Getting proportions right in a drawing requires time and really keen and close observation, making sure all the alignments and all the relationships between things are right. But even then, there will be times when you have to not draw what you see and instead draw what you know is best. For instance, with portrait drawing, most faces are actually not symmetrical. If you look really closely, you will notice sometimes that, one eye may be slightly higher than the other, slightly bigger than the other. They may be awkwardly close, unusually far apart, or the lips the corners of the mouth may not align. Like in this case, the nostrils are not aligned. So one is actually higher than the other. What do you do in that case? Do you draw them that way? That's your decision. There's been countless times, depending on, how it would affect the outcome of my drawing, I would either, understate something or exaggerate something. If it's a commission piece, I may idealize the proportions a bit or push the deviations a bit to capture the personality of the person or the character of the person. Sometimes, yes, you have to stick to your reference for the basis of your reality. But creatively speaking, you have to use your license to expand on that. I may look at this and say, well, you know what? I think, the way the hair is on this side, it kind of throws this off. So I may actually expand over here just to balance things out. Or I would deliberately level the nostrils even though they seem a bit uneven, because this alludes to another important point in drawing, is that you have to learn to draw from the perspective of yourself, the artist, and you also have to step aside and look at it from the perspective of the viewer. So, for example, if you make the nostrils, askewed, right, like they actually are a little bit. Now, someone looking at your drawing, you think they're going to think, well, that person looked that way. Most likely, they may think you didn't get your proportions right. So sometimes you have to make that decision to tweak things a bit and fixing things a bit. And this is where you learn how to be creative and draw from your imagination and so on, so that you can actually see a vision you have for the outcome of your drawing, and the changes you make, you're relying on what you know to fix that and not necessarily what you're looking at. Shading is another important area where this applies. When drawing from observation, you want to observe the subject closely and look at it really carefully, because you want to be able to capture all the subtle effects of light and shadow that's there. But again, there will be times where you have to ignore what you see and draw what you know is there, even though you don't see it, or draw what you know is best for creating the illusion or the outcome you want in that drawing. Now, this may mean removing something or modifying something or even adding something new altogether. I do this all the time. Sometimes I add a cast shadow where there is none, or I remove or modify a cast shadow if I think the drawing will look better without it. Like if you look at this photograph, you can see the cast shadow here. Now, if I were doing a drawing of this picture or this photograph, I would modify that cast shadow because I don't think it's aesthetically pleasing to me. Because sometimes you have to understand that, you may not have the perfect lighting conditions, or you may not have the perfect reference, or you may not like everything in the reference image that you have. You may like the feature of the face and so on, but there may be little things that you think will disrupt the drawing aesthetically. And for me, in this case, I think that cast shadow, the shape of it, is not pleasing. You could modify this so that it's smaller and it doesn't seem to be that distracting, or you could lighten the value so it's not creating that strong a contrast where the eyes would be driven to it. Like even in places like under here where there's a deep shadow, I may lighten that shadow a bit so it doesn't flatten the drawing, and also gives the area under the chin a little bit more volume. So those are some of the creative decisions you can make when you are actually drawing from observation. Understand that, yes, it is very important to draw what you see, to pay close attention, so you know that you are really understanding the subject. But at the same time, understand that you have to draw what you know is best for the drawing, or best for the creative vision that you have for the drawing. Now, even with something like anatomy, this whole idea of drawing what you see and drawing what you know is also very important. This is another reason why, if you want to draw portrait, the human figure, animals really well, it is useful to know at least some basic anatomy, because sometimes you will have to rely on what you know to improve on what you see, because what you see may not give you enough information. Let's say you're just drawing the arm. Now, if you notice, I'm deliberately drawing it like this so you don't see any overlaps. What if you're not able to see the overlaps and this is how it looks? Now, this is where you have to rely on what you know to supplement what you see. For example, I know that the deltoid actually overlaps and goes and lodges itself right between the biceps and the triceps. So I know that there will be an overlap here. You see, I know that this muscle actually comes from between the bicep and the tricep, and it actually goes just like this. You see, and I know that the chest muscle, the pectoralis, right, it actually moves over and it lodges right into the under the deltoid like that. So just by that simple little overlap you have right there, that alone adds so much to a drawing. You see, you know that the clavicle actually goes around the shoulder, right? And then another muscle, the trapezius, actually goes behind it. So simple little overlap. It's the same reason if you have something like this, and then I do like this, that adds a lot to the sense of volume and three-dimensionality, because it shows how they relate spatially, you see. So this is an example of where you have to, yes, pay a close attention to what you're drawing, but at the same time, it's important to rely on what you know to supplement that. And they're actually not really contradictory. They don't really contradict each other, but they really supplement each other. It's really complementary opposites. So it's a matter of knowing when to really focus on what you're looking at, and at the same time knowing when to branch off and say, you know what, I'm going to rely a little bit on what I think is best for this drawing. Okay, everyone, so I hope you found something useful or something you liked in this video. And if you did, please remember to give the video a thumbs up. And if you want more content like this, remember to subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications so you won't miss any new uploads. And again, thanks for watching. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.